Thank you. We good?
Open windows, none.
All right. I want to share with you guys something that helps me a lot and has helped me a lot. And I've been talking quite a bit about it with our grad group, and it seems to really resonate with them as well. I think that when you are by yourself, or just two people or whatever, it's really, really hard to figure out priorities and keep yourself focused, keep yourself motivated, keep yourself on track. And I mean, for me, it's always, what am I supposed to be doing this morning? What am I supposed to be doing Monday morning, Tuesday morning? Does anybody have that problem? Does anybody feel that? Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I think it's just human nature, right? You just, and particularly when you're with yourself, if you're in a corporate situation, or you're working in an office, you don't tend to have the same kind of problem, because there are just all sorts of things in place that kind of keep you focused, and you're doing it all, right? And that's the other thing, is when you're in like a corporate setting, an office, you tend to be a lot more focused on, whatever, a particular area of concern, as opposed to having to do absolutely everything, right, from beginning to end. And so it can be it can be really chaotic and distracting, and you end up, sort of being reactionary quite a bit, as opposed to, kind of proactively making sure that you're getting done what you need to get done, and making sure that you're meeting your goals and objectives. It's really hard to follow a plan. It's super hard to prioritize. It's kind of hard to focus. And probably the hardest thing is that a lot of people I talk to, and it's certainly I've been guilty of it as well, is that you get this paralysis by analysis. You just have so many things you could be doing, and you just don't know what to do, so you just analyze it to death, and then you just get paralyzed. You never actually get anywhere. So one way that I've been able to kind of give myself a break and reduce my focus a bit is to think about different hats. And so I would encourage you guys to give this a try. And what I like to have people do is think about themselves as different roles within their company, even if you're just one person. And in fact, some of you know Jetta, she goes to the point of she actually names these people. So it's a little disconcerting, because she calls me and she goes, that Barbie, who's her CMO, is really slacking off. And I'm like, okay, Jetta, I hope you don't have these conversations with yourself. But anyway, so you certainly don't have to go to that extreme. But I really, really encourage you to think about these roles, these hats. And I think that there are at least 4, and you might find more. CEO, fairly self-explanatory. I think all of you are wearing your CEO hat today, setting goals, directing the other hats, attending meetings, training, really understanding how to allocate resources, and in fact, sort of saying, hey, I'm going to do this whole thing about putting on different hats. That's all what the CEO's role is. Then you've got the chief operating officer, and I lump accountant into the chief operating officer. Ideally, I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, that everybody needs to have an accountant, unfortunately, but there's just too much stuff going on. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. It could be a glorified bookkeeper, but you need one. However, there are some reports, some management reports, some financial reports that need to be kept up to date, and metrics need to be gathered. You need to publish them so that all your hats can look at them, okay? And the chief operating officer needs to be worried about those kind of things. Needs to be worried about supplier management, inventory levels, customer service, all the things that you think about when you think about operations. And then you have probably the busiest one often, and that's the chief marketing officer. And the chief marketing officer is responsible for, creating and managing the marketing plans for each product or project. This hat, kind of philosophy isn't just for white label. It's also for affiliate marketing or writing Kindle books or whatever. It doesn't matter. You still need to, every single thing you do, you've got to market or you're not going to sell it, right? And it applies to every other hat. And then, I don't know what we really should call I call this business development guy, or gal. Chief Development Officer, you can call him biz development. But this is the person who's responsible for finding new products and projects that you're going to take on, okay? And so that person is responsible for doing, kind of what Aiden did yesterday, product research, going through and coming up with good ideas, getting samples, figuring out how to make the product better, finding those suppliers initially. And what you find is that there's a lot of handoff between the hats, right? So eventually, the biz development guy is going to say, okay, I found a product, did all the research, got the samples, negotiated with the supplier. I'm going to turn that over to the operations person because we've got it into Amazon. So now they have to start worrying about inventory. They have to start worrying about control, customer service. And of course, I'm going to turn it over to the marketing officer. So the marketing officer can create a marketing plan. All right. So just a little bit more detail. When you have your CEO hat on, the whole idea here is to basically give out goals to the other hats. That's the job. Set the direction. Plan out the whole year. Take a step back and say, okay, what are the most critical things that we need to do in the next 30 days so that the CEO can make sure that the other hats are making the right progress. So kind of, the whole idea behind this is it sort of gives you permission to not worry about other stuff. Okay, so as an example, the CEO, let's say on Monday, the CEO says, Chief Marketing Officer, we got a new product that's starting. You need to develop an initial marketing plan. All right, that's your goal, that's your task. You got to get that done. And then maybe on Tuesday you play Chief Marketing Officer and you don't have to worry about the CEO role anymore. You don't have to worry about the bigger picture. You don't have to worry about the year-long plan. You can wake up on Tuesday and you go, oh yeah, the CEO told me to create the initial marketing plan for this new product that I got to do. So it really gives you some permission, to kind of let your focus just be just on one thing. The Chief Operating Officer has a lot to worry about. She's usually the most stressed. So, how are the inventory levels? Got to review those every day. When do I need to reorder so I don't get out of stock? You probably need to put your Chief Operating Officer hat on every day but don't do it all day, right? If you do it all day, you're not going to get marketing done. You're not going to get business development done. You're not going to get the CEO stuff done. But what we tend to gravitate towards, all of us, is this. We wake up every day and we become this, and that's all we do because you can just sit there and go like this all day, So how are the inventory levels? When do I need to reorder? Put a process in place so that you can quickly be able to see all this stuff so that you only have to be the operating officer for an hour a day, I don't know, whatever it is that's required. Maybe outsource some stuff. I don't know, you're the Chief Operating Officer, figure it out, right? So put your hat on and figure it out, but only focus on it for a certain period of time. How are the customer reviews? Are there any concerns there? Respond to the customer questions, respond to the reviews, as we were talking about, follow up on bad reviews, whatever your process is to do that. Maybe it's calling them, or something like that. Maybe you need to give some feedback to the CMO guy and say, hey, you know what? We need to change how we're presenting this to the customer. We need to change the listing. We're getting some misunderstandings in the reviews, in the questions. People don't understand this. So maybe the Chief Operating Officer hat would give some feedback. Maybe there's some product adjustments that have to be made based on some negative feedback, based on some questions. I know a lot of you have had that experience, But I would encourage you to treat it just like, when I worked in corporate, and I'm sure a lot of you have worked in corporate, we had these people, and they did these things, and they talked to each other. And that's the way you should work it. The metric reports need to be created, which we'll talk about. And the financial reports need to be created, and there needs to be some interfacing with the accountant or the bookkeeper or both. So that's what the Chief Operating Officer has to do. Ow, just got shocked. Chief Marketing Officer, and there are some crossover between some of these hats, and you can decide how to divvy them up, but I would encourage you to formally divvy them up so that there isn't any confusion between who's doing what, because you don't want one hat to be mad at the other hat because they're taking over their space. So once the business development person, once the business development person gets the product designed and delivered to Amazon, the CMO hat needs to take over, right? So the marketing guy comes in and says, okay, I now need to understand what the product is. I'm going to create the listing, and I'm going to develop the initial marketing plan. I'm going to develop the brand websites. I'm going to develop the VIP club, manage all the advertising, spend, performance. The biggest thing that the Chief Marketing Officer does is, he's constantly evaluating the marketing plan. How am I doing? What do I need to do to change? All right, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about very specifically his role in another talk in a little bit. The biz development person, again, is responsible for doing all that product research, going out and building an idea file. I mean, every one of you should have a file or, a spreadsheet or whatever of a whole bunch of ideas. Because you should give this person time to work, I don't know, a couple times, once a week, twice a week. You have to figure out the timing. But you should put this hat on, and you should have a whole list of potential ideas that you can go to. And then decide if the CEO hat says, we're going to have 5 products by September. Well, the first task is going to be going over to this guy and saying, I got to have 5 products for September. So get off your butt and do this, right? And you better do it now because it's almost March. And, it takes a while.
What's the date?
Sorry?
Chief Operating Officer?
Chief, yeah. I don't know what we want to call this. I got to be honest. I didn't come up with a good name. I call him, historically it's been business development. It's just that everybody else was a chief something or other. So, here's the beauty. You call him whatever you want. Okay? So obtaining samples, product design, packaging design, and certainly consult with the CMO on that. You don't want him to be blindsided. You got to keep him in the loop. And the initial supplier negotiation and order. So, you got to figure out how you want to do this, okay? But some variation on this theme is what you really should be doing, okay? My recommendation is at least maybe on Mondays, or maybe it's Sunday night, or whatever you want to do, is kind of spend most of the day as the CEO and lay out the week. Just sort of say, here's our 30-day, this is what needs to be done in the next 30 days, so guess what? This week, you guys need to get this done. Each day, you're definitely going to need some operations time. There's no doubt about that. And it's just going to depend on, and at some point, the operations time is going to be a pretty big time suck, right? So it's a good problem to have, because you're going to reach a point, and this is another thing, is you'll start to know when you need help. okay? If you're constantly just churning and you're constantly in operations mode, let me ask you guys, do you feel like you guys are always in operations mode? Because it's just like that's the default, right? Yeah, it's very typical. Because it's something you can control, it's something you can have an immediate impact on, right? But meanwhile, it's not moving the ball, right? It's good, you need to do it, but you gotta do other stuff, right? Yeah. So, but you'll start to know, like if all of a sudden you have to be the chief operating officer like 4 or 5 hours a day, I mean, you gotta get help, right? You need a partner, you need an employee, you need an outsourcer, you need better systems, you need something. None of us are doing this because we want to actually work like 8 hours a day, right? Or dig ditches. We don't want to do any of those things. So this will give you a pretty good feel for that. If you start to be very, very, be ruthless in making sure that you put these hats on and put your focus on. So this is just a silly example. You can, Monday is the CEO, lay out the week, an hour a day for the operations person. You'll probably need more. And then, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and take Friday off in this example.
What I find is that it really helps me keep the big picture in mind, because in the past, years ago, I would always be focused on the details, and somehow the business would grow. But by setting aside time each week or on a regular basis to look at the big picture, to look at the plan that I've laid out for the year, and to gauge where I'm at, it allows me to see where I'm falling over and address it without getting to the end of the year and just saying, well, what happened?
Right. Yeah, if you never spend any time as the CEO, you're probably not going to get where you need to be. Granted, they're overpaid and obnoxious often, but they have a role, So some things to think about. If you're just going to try this out, which I strongly encourage you to do, these are some questions to start asking yourself when you put these hats on. The first is, do I have a plan? As the CEO, the big question you have to, on Monday morning, when you become the CEO, you better be asking, do I even know where this company's headed? Do I have a plan? What am I going to be doing in 6 months? What am I going to be doing in a year? And presumably, the CEO is going to expect you to grow the business. And so if you put your business development hat on, you're going to have to ask yourself, do I have products and projects? Because again, this is not just for white label. If you're going to do some affiliate marketing and stuff, well, you still have to figure out what projects you want to do. You still have to figure out what Kindle books you want to write. So do I have products and or projects identified, probably up through August at least, somewhere around there. When you put the Chief Operating Officer hat on, the first thing I want you to ask yourself, and the first thing I want you to work on, is something we're going to talk about, I think next, I don't remember, is metrics. Are you tracking, and we're going to talk about what to track, but are you tracking the data? Almost every single one of you guys that I talk to, when you come to me and you say, why is this happening? I go, show me the data. And you go, like that, just like that. I don't get any data. So it's getting better, but we got to get the data. Got to get the data. If we don't have any kind of understanding of where we've been and where we are now, we have no way of figuring out what's going on in the business. Now for the CMO, this is another area where we all fall down too. We just do stuff. Is there a marketing plan developed for each product and project that you have? And I would also say that there needs to be an initial one, that's a template for all white label products. So And so what I mean is that each time you launch a product, you ought to do exactly the same thing for the most part, because it's new, you don't really know what's going to happen. So this is my plan. You don't have to think about it, do these things. So you have a template there, and then once you've gone through the first, say, month of that product, then you can have a custom one for each product or project. Does that make sense to people? Does this resonate?
That's just a question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's maybe beyond the metrics, you should talk about the metrics and knowing the numbers. Maybe, are we talking like the numbers I would see, like as far as the traffic coming in and conversion rates and
Yeah.
sales and things like that?
Yep.
So just simply looking at the report within Amazon?
Yeah. But, well, I would say it's a little bit more than that, because what I think we need to do is, but not much, need to capture it historically and just put it in your own spreadsheet so that you can see in one, and I'm going to show a spreadsheet example of metric, but essentially so you can just see all the things you just talked about and a few more in one spot, see November, December, January, February, so we can see what the hell's going on, you know? Because, you know, the question is, sales are down. Okay, well, why is that? Well, I mean, if we look at the data, we'll at least know, right? It's either, it's either traffic, it's conversion rate, you know, those are really the only two possibilities. It's not, but nobody does it. I mean, you guys might be doing it, but, you know, most people don't do it. They just don't bother, so. Any other questions on kind of putting the hats on and trying that out? Any thoughts on doing that? I wanted to get some more participation here from, how about, I'm going to pick on you guys again, Karen in the back. So from a CEO perspective, you guys feel like you have a plan now? You know, like I'm going to get to this point by the end of this year?
That we'll get there. We're kind of, it's for me, I feel the same way all the time. It's like, I don't know where to start.
Right.
It's like keeping the kids alive, keeping them alive.
Well, I would just forget the kids. It's been my experience. Mine are 20 and 22, and I just think it's not worth the investment. Yeah, you just, no, just.
So I do get bogged down in the CEO stuff. Because I like
We like it. Yeah.
But, so, how do we not, our inventory stock, and the vote allow me, like, I need to start focusing on the marketing.
Right.
There's nothing I'm not getting as many
Right.
service-related questions because we're not selling all our inventories out.
Right.
But having set aside time is helpful, because we tend to do what's easier.
Absolutely. And what's comfortable and what we can have an impact on immediately. You know, that's, if you have too many things to do, that's where you gravitate towards. Always, right? Yeah. She was just talking about the fact that, really just kind of agreeing with what I just said there, which is, they tend to gravitate more towards the operational, but now there's an opportunity because they're waiting for their stock to be replenished. So to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture and be the CEO hat, maybe the chief marketing officer hat. Sounds like you were good on the product, on business development, because you have a couple products in the pipeline, coming down the pike. Yeah.
Then you start neglecting that.
Right.
So I think we talked about, Joe likes that part, so he's going to focus on that.
Yep.
And he's been the person who contacts suppliers. So, while we're waiting, to this every time to focus on that.
Right. You've got if you have a CEO that's on top of this and is telling you, you have an added benefit. You can boss him around. So he's not here, so we can say that. So you don't even have to wear the hat. You can have an extra person there. But if you have somebody who sets out a goal that says, hey, listen, you've got to have these products identified because it's part of our plan, then when you put that hat on, if you're sort of ruthless about doing this and you put that hat on, you go, well, geez, I better do it because he told me to do it. So you just have to kind of get into that mindset, I think. How many people have an actual marketing plan for their products? Like real for reals, written it down, Yeah, okay. How many people are tracking all of their, the metrics each month in a spreadsheet? And by that I just mean, sales, traffic, conversion rate, number of reviews, number of people that join the club. How many people are tracking it in a spreadsheet? C. That's why. And is anybody? Does anybody have, how many people have their plan for the whole year? Like a real spreadsheet that says, this is what the revenue is going to be at the end of 2015 and how many products we're going to have and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, a few more, that's good. Yeah. Well, that's good. So, yeah.
I think, like I said, I think I'm missing something here, but for me, the whole process kind of starts with a goal in mind. You have to know where you want to be before you decide what have you and where and how do you get there.
Yep.
One of the approaches that I took is a little business background here, but you can do an individual or company SWOT analysis.
Yep.
I think you're not what you by that is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, kind of stuff. And figure out where you want to be, and then identify where your problems are and what you got to do to get there.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you've got, you don't have a little business background, you have a lot of business background, but, I think there's a tendency to overcomplicate it too, though. And so, as the CEO of a small company, it's not that complex. It's basically, we want to start to sell stuff to, achieve some sort of financial goal that is typically tied towards security or freedom or something like that, right? So it's not that big of a deal, and so and a SWOT analysis might be more appropriate if you're trying to figure out maybe what market to penetrate, right? Maybe if you're a big company and you're in this niche or in this market and you want to start to attack this related market or something like that. Here, we kind of know if we don't have any other information, we want to start by doing white label stuff because we feel like we can have the biggest impact in the quickest, time. And so we can kind of jump ahead. There's a lot of, I guess what I'm trying to say is, because I know your background, and I came from a, similar, at least the business part, not the other amazing stuff that you've done. It's always about ready, aim, fire in corporate. And what we do, there's a lot more ready, fire, aim, and it's okay because there's no risk. And that's really the difference, right? If you are going to do a brick and mortar store, God, there's so much risk. It's overwhelming that you've got one. Overwhelming amount of risk. And so every decision has to be correct. But, if we screw up the website, if we get the wrong product, we move on.
All this seems reactionary to me.
Yeah.
You don't have a goal.
Yeah. Well, I'm suggesting you get one. I mean, that's the first thing on my list, is to have a plan, which is a goal. The plan that I kind of described was, and for me, the suggestion would be, this is what I want the end of the year to look like from a number of products, revenue, and expenses standpoint. And that's what I think the goal should be. And I think it can be as easy as that. Yeah. Yeah.
So just a suggestion, like when you talk about the year, I don't know if this is valuable for a lot of people, is when I do a year goal, I'm kind of like a lazy guy, I procrastinate and also go off on tangents.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I break out my year into 12-week goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I just look at what my goals are going to be within the next 12 weeks.
Yep.
Listen to that.
Yes.
It kind of lights a fire under me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I completely agree. We do exactly the same thing. It's just that you have to do the year first in order to figure out what the 90-day goals are. So you have to just kind of throw it out there. You have to say this is what the year looks like in order to then say, okay, well, in order to get to that at the end of the year, what do I have to do in the next 90 days and then 30 days and then what am I doing this week? So you have to do all of them. But yeah, I agree with you completely, and we're going to talk about that.
Do you guys have a list of all the, some of the metrics I'm guessing do good or do bad, or just kind of have a general, I know different niches have different.
Yeah, the metrics that we track, yeah.
Okay, just to shoot for version rate, shoot for whatever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We kind of have a list that kind of gives us, okay, we're doing good in that or we're not doing good in that.
I don't think we have a complete list, but I think it's going to come out in some of the things we're going to talk about, like just in the next couple talks. Yeah, because I know conversion rate is one of those things I have on there, and yeah. And if it's not there, let's talk about it. You know, let's definitely talk about it. What else?
Do we track the metrics on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, every 2 weeks, every week, and every month?
My preference is once a month. You know, I think, you know, when you're first launching a product, there might be some value in, you know, kind of having a look at a 2-week look, or even hell, you know, every day, you know, looking at it. But I personally think that to look at trends and statistical significance, you know, month is good, and it's, you know, kind of works with the accounting and all that kind of stuff, so kind of makes sense. Yeah.
You're tracking your BSR, January 1st, look at it, February 1st?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you look at BSR every day and it's going to be all over the place, and I don't know what you do with that. You know, I mean, I don't think there's any advantage to that. I think you take a snapshot in time and you understand that it's really all about relative measurement. And, you know, if you went from 30 to, you know, 17,000, that would be a concern. But if you went from 30 to 100, you know, you're probably not going to, it's probably not cause for alarm, right? So, you know, you just have to look at the delta, you know. What else? Any other comments, questions on this? Is everybody going to try this? Just, yeah?
Yeah.
I strongly encourage you to do it. I think it's the only way to survive. You know, I really do. I mean, you can sort of accidentally limp your way across the finish line to some good stuff without doing this, but it's kind of by accident then, you know, which is not a strategy. So.
We covered, I think, about a month ago, how to actually create these plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
In one of the webinars.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first ones.
One of like the very first webinar we had together.
Yeah.
Middle of January.
Yeah.
We had a plan template and went through how to create it. So that's in the members area.
Yep.
If you want to get home and kind of start from scratch with this, then it's all in there.
Is that MSP?
Sorry?
Is that MSP?
MSP. Oh. So, all right, we're going to do, I actually forget what, I can't remember. Damn, I got shocked at it. What is with that? That can't be good. This cannot be safe. Carolina's probably put water down here.
My computer shut down for the second time.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Chris Munch was having the same problem.
What, was he? Yeah.
I wonder if we take that out for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, metrics.
Okay, metrics. Oh, we're doing metrics next. Yay! Metrics. Woo! I have one slide in a spreadsheet. It's like my favorite thing in the world. All right.